Hey everyone, our guest today is Marla Merritt. Marla is Chief Sales and Marketing Officer for OrthoBanc and has been with the company since the beginning over 20 years ago. Prior to working for OrthoBanc, Marla was the Director of Sales for an organization that sold Equifax credit files to the financial industry, where she learned about risk assessment and coaching businesses on establishing appropriate payment plan parameters. She holds a bachelor's degree in both communications and psychology from the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. We're glad she can join us. Marla, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hello.
So tell us a little bit about you and the company.
Okay. My name is Marla Merritt, and I've been with OrthoBanc for 20 years. We actually started in this industry in the year 2000. And so we're very fond of the orthodontic and dental industries, but especially our heart is with orthodontists. And especially during this time, we are right there with you, feeling your pain. And we have some tools that really can help a practice. So I'm excited to be here today and speak about some of those.
Awesome. So it's 20 years. Is that an anniversary for you?
Yes. 2020 marks our 20th year. We had, quite a few promotions planned, and we were really excited about coming into this 20th year, and who knew what we were coming into. So we've kind of geared down the marketing for our 20th year, but it is still a big milestone for us to be celebrating our 20th year in 2020.
Absolutely. That's great. Year 2000, that was an interesting time to start a business. And then you went all the way through 2008 and all that craziness. That must have been fun.
It was an interesting time to start a business. And just kind of as a side note, December 31st, 1999, I was in the hospital having my fourth child. So
oh, wow.
She was like right on the border. Is she going to be that Y2K baby or not? So that's kind of an interesting little fact about my children.
The 31st, wow. Well, congratulations. All right,
thank
so
you.
I was looking on your site and they have something called the Tools for the Patient Financial Lifecycle. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So OrthoBanc has services that address the entire patient financial life cycle. And I'm going to show a slide right here, if that's okay. I'm just going to share my screen for a minute because it kind of helps to have a visual. Let me see here. Okay. So I think you can see the suite of tools that we offer for the orthodontic industry. I'm going to focus I'm going to kind of talk about these in the order that they came about. Again, I mentioned that we started in the year 2000, and the way that OrthoBanc kind of came to be, in my intro, you heard that I was working for a credit reporting agency at the time. Mm-hmm. And there was actually an orthodontist who was in the building where our office was located, and he was using our credit services, our credit reports.
Yeah.
And he came out and said, this is great, but he had this big long credit report to show us. And he said, this is great, but I don't know what it means. And so can you help me make sense of it? So we actually developed a scoring module for that orthodontist to help him use these credit reports. And he said, this is something that my industry needs. And so we began talking with him, and then he said, we said, what else? What else does this industry need? And so he said, we need help with our payments. We're orthodontists. We want to focus on treatment. We don't want to be focusing on, are we getting our payments every month? And so out of those initial conversations, OrthoBanc Payment Management was formed. And we some of our challenges very early on is that many practices didn't have the internet. And we decided to build our platform. Yeah, it was 2000. Really, I know it was different. So we actually built our solution on it was a web browser tool, and so that was kind of a little bit of a question in the beginning, rather than a software. And then we also the whole concept that OrthoBanc is built on is drafting the monthly payments so that they happen automatically each month. So we built OrthoBanc around this monthly payment draft, and it's going to happen electronically. Well, that wasn't something that a lot of consumers were familiar with. And so kind of the initial conversation with orthodontists was, what if they don't want me drafting their payment? Well, of course,
Yeah.
20 years later, that's not an issue at all. So
You're like
we
super
do
ahead of your time. You're really innovative.
right. Yeah, we were pretty early on the payment drafting side. But then to further round that out for practice, not only do we draft those monthly payments, but then we take them and we manage them. So our team will follow up on failed payments and just kind of manage that entire life cycle of the patient once they have their payment started. So those were our initial two services that were really built to address a need. And as we were growing and building out OrthoBanc, something else that came up is we really need help presenting these payment plans. And in the initial stages of OrthoBanc, we had this paper form that they could print out and slide across the table, and here are your payment options. And that was built into our tool originally. But as times changed and people wanted a more digital option, we developed AcceptText Pro, which is our treatment and fee presentation tool, which is the tool that you see in the middle of this slide. And I'll remove the slide in a minute, but this just kind of helps show you how it's kind of from beginning to end.
Sure.
We have practices asking us about the point of care solution, so we developed Breeze. And then IMAX is coming soon because we continue to get practices say, hey, help us with our insurance too.
Oh.
So I'm going to stop sharing the screen, but I did want to show you those tools because it just kind of helps to see that we do address the entire life cycle from where you're kind of checking on insurance, where you're assessing the risk of that consumer before you offer them a payment plan. Mm-hmm. But then the two tools that have become so essential during this time are our AcceptText Pro treatment and fee presentation tool and OrthoBanc Payment Management.
Okay, tell us why.
So let's talk about AcceptText Pro for a minute. AcceptText Pro is, right now practices are scrambling. Everybody's hopefully about to go back to their practice, and they're going to be tasked with keeping the patient and responsible party in the practice for less amount of time. So they're going to need shorter appointments. They're going to be looking for ways to shorten those visits to keep, patients from running into each other and fewer people in the practice. And so we feel very fortunate that we already had AcceptText Pro in place. Yeah. And practices, we've got some experience with practices that we're already using it. What AcceptText Pro does is it allows you to present treatment options as well as payment options to the patient and responsible party. That can be done in the practice, sitting there talking to them and showing them a payment calculator built into AcceptText Pro.
Like on a tablet or something? You just show them a tablet and go through it?
You can do it on a tablet. You can share it on a screen between you and the responsible party on the wall. You can turn your screen. It really works however is best suited for that practice.
Gotcha. Okay.
But then the thing that's become so important right now is it can also be shared for viewing at home. So the responsible party can open up that presentation. They can explore their payment options from home. Maybe the TC even gets on a virtual chat with them through a Zoom or some sort of meeting.
Yeah, a lot of the doctors are using Zoom right now while the HIPAA compliance isn't an issue. So
I wonder. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out because I know a lot of them have adopted the Zoom, and I wonder how long that will be allowed to continue. That'll be something really interesting to watch. And so, so we don't have that video conferencing piece, but what we do is we provide the piece that they can explore and look into their options and the payment calculators there. And so once they've determined this is the payment plan that works for me, they can actually accept treatment from home. So there's literally a green button that says accept. And when they accept, it's going to take them through electronically signing the treatment forms that the practice has. So that's all customized. The practice can load their custom forms in there. So whether they have 2 forms they typically get signed or 7, all of those can just be digitally signed by the responsible party there. The TC gets a message, hey, they've accepted treatment, and then she can even have the financial conversation over the phone. And then once they kind of determine, yes, we're ready to move forward, they can set up their payment plan from home as well. Wow. So you think about what you're eliminating. I actually did some interviews with some practices that had already begun to use AcceptText Pro before COVID.
Yeah.
And, they said, so for example, you've got growth guidance patients that you've been seeing for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
You know that they're eventually going to start treatment with you. You've seen their siblings.
Yeah.
And so they come in, they're ready to start, but you still need to have that financial conversation. But does that conversation really need to happen there? And so
Does
had
it
a couple
require an
practice.
office visit? That makes
Yeah,
sense.
does it? And so several of the practices said they actually just say, okay, you're ready to start. I'm going to send you the financial information. Once you've signed all your forms, and you can do that at home, we will set up your payment plan. And then they just move forward that way.
Yeah, it should be a no-brainer, especially if they've been in treatment before with other family members. They know the deal with your practice.
Yeah. So that's someone, save your in-office visits for the ones who, and those consultations where you're going to have more of a conversation. Save that and kind of free that schedule up and move some of those out. We're using AcceptText Pro prior to all of this. They were doing the growth guidance patients. And so now they have these presentations that they've shared previously, and they are able to actually present, follow up with those people that they had previously presented a presentation to. So I had one person say, I had people who have had Invisalign scans in the last 4 to 6 months and moving ahead with those. So they're using this time to reach out to responsible billing parties and say, hey, I know you're home and you maybe wanted to take some things off your to-do list.
Mm-hmm.
Your Invisalign scan's still good. Should we go ahead? Richie, you back with us?
Yeah, my internet just flickered in the whole house.
Well,
I jumped in.
Yeah, thank you very much. I kind of lost my train of thought there for a minute. Thought I might have to run the show by myself. But
Oh yeah, I'm sure
you're okay. Richie, you could take over.
So yeah, I was just explaining that there are practices that are using AcceptText Pro right now to kind of manage some of the presentations that they had done previously, and they've been able to continue to get new starts even through this time.
I mean, any new starts right now is just so helpful to help make this year, the revenue where it should have been, and hopefully will be.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting statistic that we can offer. We work with a lot of practices, of course, and we were typically seeing between 900 to 1,000 case starts per day. Yeah. And that was new starts that we were starting their payment plan. And the average is always somewhere between 900 to 1,000 per day. And beginning about March 15th, our running starts per day average is about 63 right now.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's really sad to see that number go down, but it's also encouraging that there have been practices that have been able to make this work. Mm-hmm. And so as I began reaching out to some of those practices that, hey, how are you still getting these starts? A lot of them were saying we have AcceptText Pro in place. We're going back and reaching out to people who hadn't yet accepted. We're continuing our growth guidance consultations remotely, virtually. And so they have been able to see that case start continue.
Yeah, I mean, we have several clients that they didn't have time to follow up with leads but we got them in 2019 even. We were always talking to them over email, et cetera, doing a digital thing, but there's always a place to make a phone call.
Right.
And, those doctors that had that kind of bank of leads of people that potentially could be starts, hey, this is a great time to reach out, and they are getting starts because they had all those potentials in there.
Right. Yeah, I think that one thing that of course an orthodontist would be concerned with, so they're reaching out to leads that like you guys are providing that haven't been seen, so they don't have their records yet. Yeah. But with the photo technology now, I did talk to some of our practices that are continuing to go ahead and offer presentations. And I said, what are you doing if they come in and their records show that there's quite a change and you really should have charged more? So right now you have this consultation with someone remotely, maybe via Zoom or however you're doing that right now. Mm-hmm. with AcceptText Pro, you can go ahead and send that treatment information. And AcceptText Pro includes both the treatment and the payment information. So a practice can have it kind of outlined. Here's what treatment includes. Here's how long you'll be in treatment. All that written down, the practice logo, marketing information for the practice. And so once they share that presentation, they can have another call. They can share it while they're having that initial call and say, okay, you should have just received an email from me. Open that up and let's talk through your treatment. Now switch to the payment details and let's talk through your payment. So that conversation can just happen, right there using AcceptText Pro. And then if they're ready to start, let them electronically sign their forms right then.
Yeah, and it's great because you can answer questions right then in real time.
Right.
I've done that when we have a client ready to sign, I'll often either send them a recorded video via Soapbox so they can go over it, or just go over it with them online. It's really helpful to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about the payment management. You're managing for orthodontists. How exactly do you do that? Is OrthoBanc still open for business?
Oh, we are. We have a team of about 40 call center agents that take phone calls from responsible parties. We also follow up on failed payments for practices. Yeah. So we thought we were planning for a snowstorm. We had worked through, if we have to send everybody to work from home, here's what we need. So we had transitioned to everybody had a laptop. We had, talked through the internet connection for different people's homes. And we had a plan that if Chattanooga was hit with a snowstorm, we were ready to go home and work. And boy, did we not know the storm that was coming.
Yeah, right.
The COVID storm came,
snowstorm, right?
And it hit hard. But we were ready. And the very first day that our community was saying, shut it down, all of our agents were able to work from home. And so what we've been able to provide practices during this time, it is a voice for these responsible parties who are, maybe have lost their job, who are scared. They can call us, they can reach our agents, they can chat with us. We have a responsible portal, so they can actually jump online, log in, they can make extra payments, they can change their payment method, they can chat with one of our agents. So we're, right now, if a practice is managing their own payment plans and suddenly they've had to furlough their team, and they don't really have anyone to fill those calls, some doctors have called us and, said, I've been taking these phone calls at home. I don't really know what to talk about right here.
Right.
And
absolutely.
So,
role for
yeah,
them.
because their team, they don't have their team to kind of run that. So we've been able to continue to manage the payments for the practices that we serve. And we expected to get so many calls saying we can't make the payment this month. We manage payments for about 350,000 responsible parties right now.
Wow.
And yeah, we have a lot. And so, we expected the number to be really large of the people who were calling in saying, I can't make my payment.
Yeah.
But so far, and we're tracking from March 15th until now, we've had about 3,500, between 3,500 to 3,600 call us and request to defer their payment. We've had another probably 2,500 to 2,600 deferred by a practice user. So, we had a few practices early on that said, we're going to waive payments for everybody for a month. And I'm like, oh, that's probably not a great idea. We were able to talk to a few of them and say, let's just handle it on a case by case basis.
Yeah.
So when a responsible party calls us, what we typically do is say, we can defer one payment till the end of your contract. If they specifically mention that they're having issues because of COVID, we can defer one payment to the end of your contract, and then we'll resume drafting next month. And typically they're fine with that. And again, overall, it's less than 2% of our responsible parties who've had a payment deferred so far.
Yeah, I was trying to do the math in my head. I was like, that is very low percentage.
Well, I had to do it with a calculator before we got on the phone.
Yeah.
I don't do math in my head.
That's actually a very good sign, I think, for the economy, because when you have that much data, that's just an indicator of what's going on with a lot of other businesses and families in general. So that's actually very good to hear.
Yeah, it is good to hear. And we even found the weeks that the stimulus checks were first distributed, we started listening. Our call volume increased, and so some of the supervisors started listening in. We record every single call that we make, and some of the supervisors began listening. And a lot of those calls were people saying, you had to defer a payment, and then I got the stimulus check. I want to go ahead and get caught up.
Oh, wow.
So it's been pretty remarkable. And I'm not saying that that we won't see that number increase. I believe we will.
Yeah.
I think people, we're on the front edge of the trouble that the American public will have over this. But I think initially this is way lower than we expected. And, we'll continue to work with them. We've had responsible parties call and say, I lost my job, and we think they're calling to defer a payment. And they said, can I just reduce my payment for a few months until I'm working again? I don't want to not pay at all. So it's been really, it's been good to be there for responsibles who are worried about their orthodontic payments. And, OrthoBanc has always prided ourselves on being an extension of the practices that we serve. We know that we are the front line to represent these practices. And if we don't represent them well, then they're going to lose business. So that customer service mentality has really served us well throughout this, because we're having a lot of, calls with very concerned, worried individuals. And we're just able to offer that compassion and be a voice to kind of walk them through what's going to happen.
I know that's so helpful to help the practices manage their brands. You really need someone who knows what they're doing, can be empathetic and manage, a lot of these emotions, which I'm sure are very high right now in certain situations.
Right, they really are. It's been interesting, the phone calls. We have a customer service team. My team does marketing and customer service with the practices. So we have a whole team that works with responsible parties. But my team really works with the practices. And so, typically we're talking to practices about our solutions, or maybe they're having IT questions or whatever. But during this time, a lot of our phone calls are actually the doctors that are saying, I don't know how to even know what money's coming next month, because my team does that. And so we've been able to, they know that it's, here it's coming, but they don't know really how to get a picture, because their team pulls the reports.
That makes sense.
We've, trained a lot of doctors on how to view our reports and shown them, all that their team members are doing for them on a day in, day out basis too. So it's been really fun to get to have more conversations with the doctors and begin to show them. And we've had so many reach out and just say, don't even know what we'd be doing right now if we didn't have this consistent cash flow. That's been
absolutely
a little bit of a bright lighting in this really
it's a huge piece of your practice to be automated, and a very important piece. If I can automate anything, it's cash flow. So how do you see yourself helping orthodontists when they return to their practices after COVID?
So we've been receiving a lot of requests for demos for practices that we're not using Acceptex Pro. And we're doing all that we can to quickly move them through the setup process. Acceptex Pro is a very individualized solution. We set up the practice with custom parameters. They set their own pricing, their own discounts, their own add-ons. So we're trying to rapidly move all the doctors who are ready to get set up for this and move them through that setup process so that they have it ready to go. And then, like I said, they're going to really need to be limiting that time in the practice. So they will be able to, when they open their doors, they'll kind of have this new workflow where they can share the presentations at home. I did a presentation recently, and I showed the screen where it's like a split screen, and there's mom sitting in the car and the kids and, getting his adjustment. I think that we're going to see a lot more of that, where they're just really trying to limit the number of people in the practice. And so in the case of records, they're going to be able to share those at home. We've also had, we had this one office call us. It was kind of interesting. They said, we're wanting to do some marketing right now to get some new starts queued up for once we open back up. And they were wanting to run a special that was, pay $250 now, and it'll count as $500 towards your down payment when you schedule your we reopen, you know.
Yeah.
So they're doing some Facebook marketing like that, where if they go ahead and make a down payment of X, it'll be worth this when they come in for their first day of treatment. It'll cover their down payment.
What an interesting campaign. Okay.
Yeah, it's, just kind of an interesting little marketing piece. And so this practice contacted us and said, I want you to take that payment, that initial payment. So we kind of had our developers do it's funny, they call it a hackathon. Have you ever heard of that?
No, but it makes sense in context. Okay.
Quick development. I love it. I'm like, I want to enjoy, but I don't know how to do anything. But anyway, so they developed this, just a quick solution for a practice can get up to 5 different payment links from us. So let's say a practice wants 250, 500, 750, and 1,000. So they want those 4 individual payment links. They can reuse those links over and over again. And we just provide the secure payment portal for them to accept that payment. And, we use our Breeze solution to kind of handle that single payment. And it's just something that we, put together to help practices that are wanting to market in some way where they have a link to accept some sort of payment, just to kind of get that buy-in.
Absolutely.
So,
anything when you're making it easier to start any sort of relationship, that's going to usually be a good campaign, because that first
we didn't have anything like that before where we could just accept a single payment. We've always been about those long-term payment plans. And so, that's just something that we worked on pretty quickly to help start it out for that one practice, but we decided to offer it to all the practices that are interested in that as well.
Yeah.
And then, of course, just moving forward, we don't know what the future's going to. I feel like I've got a hair sticking up. Sorry, I keep doing that. We don't know what the future is going to hold for practices in the fall again. It's we keep hearing, is this, we're going to have a second round of this virus, and so I think it's really important that a practice has a managed cash flow plan in place. Mm-hmm. Especially by next fall. And so, we're really beginning to have these conversations with practices that thought before, I'll just manage these payments myself, but are kind of second guessing that right now.
So that's what you mean by managed cash flow? Someone else is managing it for you?
Someone else, yeah. Because even if they could have had a recurring payment plan, there are other solutions where it sets it up to draft automatically, but they still require their team to manage that if the payment fails, or if the responsible party calls and says, hey, the money's not there, can you draft it in 2 weeks? Well, if your practice is closed and you don't have anyone to fill those phone calls right now, how are you managing that? And that's truly the solution that we bring for a practice.
Yeah, just fully managed. You take care of all of it. I think that's huge. I mean, I think a lot of practices are going to looking for a lot of ways to outsource a lot of what the team is doing, just to make sure that in a situation like this, they know it's being managed properly. I know a lot of our clients are so happy that they have us, because they're just, they can just lean on us all day. We're all working from home. We're digital. That's how we've always been.
Right.
Literally just took my computer to the house and plopped it down. I mean, it was no big deal.
Yeah. I was speaking to a consultant, Liz Conforti, and she mentioned to me that she said habits are forming right now. So you've got the general public that was already leaning toward probably a little too much technology in their day.
Yeah.
And now they've been sent home, and like me, for example, I sit in front of my computer 8 to 10 hours a day at my dining room table. And so so that's what so many consumers are doing right now. And it's going to be very important that the orthodontic practice meets them where they live. And you're going to see more people working from home. You're going to, and when I'm working from home, I had more flexibility to, run out and do things when I was at my office and had a true lunch hour. You get involved in your day at home and you're not running those errands as much. So I just think
I'm saving over an hour driving.
Right.
I just got my garage finally cleaned up and set up my workout equipment. So I'm like, I could just go out there and take care of business. That's great.
Yeah, I tackled a photo project. You know, all those pictures that you used to get printed and they just stacked up. Yeah, that's what I've been doing, putting them in photo albums.
It'll be good for everyone to kind of organizing their life. Like, I feel like that, what do they say, when your house is cluttered, your mind is cluttered. Like,
Yeah.
I feel that when I finished that garage, had been there really messed up for like a year. And I was like, oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I
It makes
feel
a big
more organized than I was before.
Right. And that's what I mean. I just think that so many people have seen that, you know, by not driving in and into work every day and that commute, you're going to see more and more people working from home, more and more people that are just wanting to, as much as possible, have, you know, just take care of things remotely. And, you know, we're going to continue to evolve our products to work with that more and more. We had no idea how important it was going to become. And we had, you know, we'd begun to work on that solution and then bam. So I'm glad that we have something
positioned to help everyone. That's great.
Yeah. And it's been really, we've been doing a lot of demos and, you know, we get every demo, you get a few more suggestions and a few more thoughts on how this could be better. And we're, you know, cataloging all of those suggestions and putting them in the backlog to make it better and better, because we know it's going to be very important that the solution evolves to meet the changes that we're facing.
Yeah, that's great advice. Is there anything else you want to share with the audience?
Well, maybe I could talk pricing.
Yeah, totally. Everyone wants to know about that.
Yeah. You know, OrthoBanc has really worked to keep our solutions very simple and affordable. You know, you get a lot of bang for the money that you spend with us. So the way that let's kind of start with our practice management and we'll work backwards from there. Yeah. We completely manage a payment plan for the life cycle of that patient from the day they start until their balance is zero. Yeah. And the starting price is $35 for the life of that patient. Okay. If you're buying in packages. So most practices will buy, maybe they have 400 starts a year, so they'll buy a package of 400. And the more you buy, the less you pay. So most of our practices are spending somewhere $30 to $31 per account. Okay. And that's for the life of that patient. So just think about, you know, we're going to draft their payment each month. We're going to follow up on all failed payments. We're going to get those expired credit card, you know, get the new expiration dates for credit cards. We're going to provide the chat feature for them, the portal where they can change their payment method, make extra payments. So all of that is included and wrapped up in that one price per patient. Mm-hmm. If we're drafting from their checking account, that's it. If we're drafting from their credit card, then you also pay the credit card fee associated with that. So it's a little bit more expensive for credit card. And so that's how our payment management works. And it's just all encompassing. You know, one thing I didn't mention about our payment management is that the payments do also post directly to most of the practice management systems. So Top Ortho, Cloud9, Dolphin Management, Ortho2, all of those have an integration with OrthoBank that allows those payments to also post. So again, one less thing that you have to worry about in your practice, because the payments
that's so nice, because a lot of software does not work with a lot of patient management systems. I can just from a marketing point of view, but I've heard about it from a lot of my clients. So it's a big step that you're getting rid of right there for the manual. Yeah.
And again, that goes back to our 20 years. You know, we've had these integrations with the majority of those software vendors, and we have others with, you know, other vendors as well, but we've had those going back, some of them since 2005. And so, you know, we got in on the front end of those integrations pretty early, and they're really great integrations to post those payments back. So that one price per patient includes all of that. And
so it's including all the management you're doing. That's pretty good.
Yeah. It's all just wrapped in that price. And then AcceptTex Pro is, if you're just using it by itself without OrthoBanc management, it's $199 a month. If you're using it with OrthoBanc Payment Management, then it's $149 per month. Okay. And so if you kind of wrap that together, and you know, from AcceptTex Pro, you can set their payment plan up in OrthoBank directly from there. So they really work very well together. And you get the discount for AcceptTex Pro if you're using our management So, so that's how that works. A minute ago, I mentioned, you said if there was something else I wanted to share. I mentioned credit cards, and it just kind of triggered a thought. One thing we've been watching is failure rates as well.
Oh,
and yeah, so typically when we draft payments, if we're drafting ACH, about 2% of the payments will fail. And if we're drafting from a credit card, it's more like about 8%. And so that doesn't mean that it's terminated. Again, if it fails, we're reaching out, we're following that. So this is what a practice would be experiencing if they were drafting from checking account or credit card, because those are those initial primary drafts, 2% to 8%.
Yeah.
The average kind of all in is somewhere around 5 to 5.5%. And we have not seen that failure rate go up through this whole process. So our failures.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a huge indicator right there. That's surprising.
And again, we're still watching it because we know we're on the front end of when this really begins to affect people's, that they've lost their job. But so far, our failure rates are right about even with where they have been previously.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really good. Mentioning the ACH versus credit card, credit cards, you'll have lost or stolen cars, et cetera. And so that would be happening if the practice were managing it themselves. But then what happens? They have to reach out to the responsible party. They have to get that new credit card number. Yeah. Often they're taking it over the phone, where we have a secure portal that the patient can log in and do all that. So it just really takes a lot of those steps that you don't even think about day in, day out, but they really add up in the time that the staff spends managing those payments.
Oh, every little administrative task, anything you can take out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it sounds like you'd prefer someone to use ACH. Do you have any recommendations? Like, when are they choosing which credit card ACH, and do you have any recommendations for
mm-hmm.
encourage people to use ACH?
Yeah. So that conversation, was happening up front in the practice with the financial coordinator. And what we would recommend, we had kind of a script where they would say, we're going to draft your monthly payments automatically each month. If you want to take advantage of our free office payment plan, we're going to be drafting your payment each month from your checking account. So we'll just need a checking account and routing number. So only mentioning the checking account and not mentioning that credit card.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when that's their only choice, they'll they think that's their only choice. We have some practices that if they then come and say, can you draft from my credit card instead? Some of our practices will say we can, but we charge a $100 bookkeeping fee or $150 bookkeeping fee if we draft from your credit card. We have other practices that will say we're going to draft from your checking account or credit card. And if we draft from your checking account, we're going to give you a $150 discount. So there's just different ways that you can kind of
incentivize.
Do that. Mm-hmm. Yes. Some practices will not accept credit card at all. They only do the ACH. So it's just a preference of the practice, how they want to, do they want to accept credit cards? Do they want to offer a discount for ACH? We don't recommend charging more for credit card. There's some states where, or there's some, it's kind of sticky whether or not you can charge more for a credit card.
Oh, but the bookkeeping fee kind of.
But when you discount the ACH, that tends to work.
That makes sense. I think that's a good way to go about it, discounting. Because if you have 1,000, 2,000 people,
mm-hmm.
you can get the majority of them ACH. That's so significant.
Yeah.
Savings.
Well, you've got two benefits there. Number one, it saves the practice money. And then number two, your failure rates are going to just be less. And I think the primary reason for that is people watch their checking account. They don't want their ACH draft failing because then their bank is going to hit them with fees. Yeah. So that's monitored a lot more closely. We're more likely to get a call from someone saying, please don't draft this week. The money's not there. And so we kind of have an arrangement with the practices that we serve that as long as they're only wanting to move that payment out 2 weeks, that we'll do it without asking the practice. But if they want to go beyond 2 weeks, then we reach out and say, are you okay with this?
Oh, that's really smart, because that's yet another thing that you're managing for them without having to have a whole conversation, figure stuff up, and get the staff involved.
Right.
We have a decent amount of viewers right now. If you guys have any questions, use our chat and we'll have our guests answer them. So is there anything else on your mind you want to talk about?
I can't think of anything. I feel like I've talked about a lot of stuff.
Knowledge now.
Yeah. I will mention one thing. We do have our ZAC solution as well, and that's probably a whole nother webinar. Should a practice consider risk assessment before they offer a payment plan?
Yeah.
And our ZAC credit scoring that's where my background was, and our president as well, before we started OrthoBanc in the year 2000.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of experience in putting risk assessment together. Our module was developed also by Paul Zolke, the consultant, and it's kind of different school of thought. Should you use risk assessment or not? But I think that we're going to have some practices right now saying maybe I should consider that again. And so,
because people were having. Some people are probably having significant changes to their credit right now.
Yeah, and so what kind of the typical school of thought with credit grades is if you keep your credit score high always, even if you're presented with troubled times, you're gonna work things through, and as best as possible keep your credit score good, and continue to make your payments. So it's just an added measure for you to kind of know the risk before you determine. So let's look at it this way. If that person comes in and they're pretty high risk and you want that case start, but maybe Invisalign is a lot more costly for your practice. So maybe that particular patient can only get Invisalign if they pay a higher down payment. Otherwise, they qualify for traditional braces. There's different ways that it can be used to still get that case start, but also lower your risk.
Okay. Is there any practice that's too small for the service? Do you have a
No. What we recommend is a practice that is just starting out. If you get OrthoBanc in place very early on, then as you grow and need more and more team members, you're not going to need them as quickly because we're taking so many of those administrative tasks off the small team that you'll be starting with. So it just really keeps you from having to grow as fast. Our minimum package, so I told you we sell, it's $35 or less per patient. We do require that a practice purchases $50 to get started, but as long as they're continuing to set up accounts with us as they get new starts, those aren't going to expire. So those will just be there to use, and so there really is no practice that's too small.
Oh yeah, 50 for sure. You'll use that.
Right.
So what's the onboarding process for practice that wants to get started? What does it look like?
And so what we recommend, so we do have some paperwork because we're touching bank accounts. So, we have to meet PCI standards. There's just a lot of regulations that we have to meet. Also, we sell the credit recommendations, so there's other standards there. So our initial paperwork is, you got to work through it a minute. But what we recommend is get that part of it completed as soon as possible. And once we have the paperwork, we can get a practice boarded in just a few days and get their training scheduled. So typically, once we have the paperwork, we can get them on our training calendar within just a couple of weeks. Acceptex Pro can sometimes be a little bit longer because the practice really needs to give us their okay on, this is what I want it to look like, because we're customizing it for each practice.
Oh, that's cool.
So what I would recommend right now is, we have quite a few offices that are ready to get set up for this. So the sooner you contact us and get the paperwork in, the sooner we can get you on our training calendar. But we do all our training remotely, and you don't pay extra for the training. It's just we can move through those trainings pretty quickly.
I got you. So what if someone is using a different service right now and they want to change? How do you help them through that transition process?
Yeah, if somebody else is using a service that's already drafting their monthly payments, those recurring monthly drafts, those payment methods have been stored securely, and most likely you're not going to be able to get at those payment methods. So there's a couple of options. Some practices will do a complete conversion of all of those accounts, and they'll reach out to the responsible parties to get the payment method again.
Okay.
Kind of a pain, but right now, while if a practice is not seeing patients, this could be a time where they may have a little bit more time for that. But it's just kind of
if you have that PPP money and you need to give the staff something to do, perfect.
yeah, but it's a pain to have to gather those payment methods again. So a lot of practices will say, I'm going to keep that in place for the ones that were already on that system, and I'm just going to use OrthoBanc from this point forward. That's perfectly fine. That's one way to address it. We will, if you're going to do a conversion, so let's say you have 200 accounts drafting with someone else and you're going to do a conversion, we'll price those a little bit less than the full price for the fully managed case.
Gotcha.
And we can help through that process. It's just, I won't lie, it's kind of a pain to get those payment methods.
I can imagine that.
Yeah.
Well, at least you're helping through the process for sure.
We'll help in any way we can.
Great. Well, Marla, I think that's it. It was really great talking to you.
Okay.
Learned a lot.
Awesome. Well, it's great to talk to you. And I do want to say, if anybody's interested in hearing more about us, marketing at orthobanc.com. And again, we have our full, so far we have not had to furlough. We have 110 employees. And, it's orthodontics is our industry. So it's been a little bit rough over the last, but we know that it's really important that we keep these people in place to manage the payments for the practices that are coming in. We do have a full team waiting there to take your call.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks for your time, and take it easy and stay safe out there.
Okay. Great to talk to you.
Bye.
Thank you.